I got cut off because my phone ran out of storage. So, what I was saying was I want to really help people to stop focusing on everything else and start focusing on themselves and what they're here to do. When a lot of the times why people are so focused on everything out in the outside world is because they're getting the pressure to. We're in a country right now where our government would like for us to be distracted by a lot of things. A lot of bills get passed in the middle of the night. Whenever something's going on in Hollywood, you can also imagine there's something going on in the government or in the world that is not wanting to be within our view. So this is known now. These are things that we would be, people like me were called conspiracy theorists, 5, 6 years ago, whatever, before the pandemic. And the truth is that this stuff is coming up, and it's true. It's undeniable at this point. We don't have to pretend that we're not getting poisoned by our government. We don't have to pretend that there aren't chemtrails in the sky. We don't have to pretend that the privatization of water has anything to do with making it cleaner and safer. It does not. So it's about us actually waking up to why are we here right now? What is our role in this time of great transformation as a planet and as a species? What are we finally learning? What are we finally going to take and put into action in our lives? Do you think that, we came here to watch a bunch of celebrities' lives and then and watch reality TV and watch American Idol, whatever it is, these, do you think that this is what life and God intended for you? The divine, if you don't like the word God. Do you think that's your purpose here? I don't. I think that we all have incredible gifts to give back into the world. And it's all a lot of it is based on our trauma and us working through that trauma and being able to show each other how to transform from victim, to person who gives back. And we're all going to be at different stages in different parts of our life with different things. That's what I love about the charts. It gives me so much more compassion for people, less judgment, because I don't have their chart. They have their chart to deal with. They don't have like right now, as an example, there's 3 groups of people that this eclipse tomorrow is going to be impacting. So for those of us that were born in the mid to late 70s, it's going to be impacting our Plutos, the truth, what's below the surface, healing, transformation, rebirth. Those of us that were born, I think in the late 60s, early 70s, it's going to be hitting our Uranus. Uranus is the planet of freedom, rebellion, and going your own way. The humanitarian is generally what, Uranus is ruled by Aquarius, and we're going into this period where Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And then those that were born in the late 40s, this is going to be hitting your Neptune, the planet of illusion and delusion. And so it's because we need to connect with a higher source. Neptune is the divine, our divine love, not just love between us and another. So I believe these eclipses in Libra, particularly this eclipse happening tomorrow, is really trying to move some generational crap through, is really trying to have us release things. So we are going to have, for instance, you can see that the United States government will send billions of dollars to another country, but suddenly struggling to do things in its own country. That should raise a lot of red flags for everybody. The point of a country was to help take care of the people within it and create secure structures around that to thrive and again, so then it can give back to the rest of the world. But what has the United States been doing? No boundaries. No boundaries. And we can see that when we're in relationships with no boundaries, the delusional things that start happening and the giving away of power that happens, and eventually the lack of taking care of self happens. So I'm hoping this makes sense to you as it does in my brain, but if you don't want to see it personally, at least look at it globally and shift your behavior accordingly. If you're pushing for people to join a side, you're moving in the wrong direction. The way that we balance Libra is moving to the center. And in the center, most of us have the same exact needs, wants, and desires. And yet you're focusing over here on these extreme sides of things. And those of you, and what's so funny is just listening to how each of you is like, that might be on these external, extreme sides, that you're literally saying the exact same things about the other side. It's so delusional. It's actually funny at times, and sad and scary to me. At the other end of it is just seeing the pure resistance to growth and moving into new paradigms and new ways of doing things. As an example, I saw our local Democratic Party. I don't know. There's like a group of Democrats. I forget what they call themselves, but they weren't focused here. They were focused in Pennsylvania because they're trying to get voters in Pennsylvania to do what they want you to do. Focus on your communities. Don't focus on getting them to your side of a story. Focus on what are your issues and how can I help in our community help you with your issues. I can guarantee you that most of us are having issues around how we putting food on the table next year. Is my job going to be stable? Is my child who's dealing with all kinds of, neurodivergent issues or autistic issues, are there going to be resources for them in the future? Am I going to be able to work? Because I'm going to need to be home and caring for, that child or that elder who also doesn't have many resources to go to because we're seeing all of the things that are faulty in that system. The things that everybody are fighting, those top 3 things people are fighting about are actually the least of our issues. We need to actually deal with what do we need to survive. And if you're doing great financially in your world, then it's upon you to reach out to those in your community that are not and ask why and how can you help and bring to attention in your local community that, and we help each other. This disaster that's happened in the South, I'm not going to get into the things that I believe that are behind that, given the states that they're impacting and the area that it's impacting. But what I will say about that is that what's going to help those people is each other. It's your electric cars. I get it. Everybody who's in the climate change world is all about everybody. Now we got to go to this whole agenda of everything turning to this. No, that is not how things work. An electric car is useless when you're underwater. It is useless when there is no power. So we don't go to extremes. We need to go, okay, we want to migrate and get away from this behavior, but how about instead of focusing on our individual issues, we go to the top, where there is all the money, where we go to the top, where all of the precedents and issues are getting set. We go to the top, where everything is going, instead of down here where nothing is going. Why are you blaming your brother and sister versus looking up at the delusional, oppressional institutions that have been oppressing you, and yet you're joining their teams? That's where we're at, and I'm not going to pretend it's some other way anymore. It's why I left my practice as well, because I couldn't talk like this to people in my practice, because I would be, it would offend people potentially. It would bring up these things in people. I mean, I did talk to, trust me, plenty of my patients wanted this conversation. It's why they came to me. But as a business owner, to talk about your perspective on these topics is to basically set yourself up to be talked about, which people did, to stop coming to you, which people did. And I realized, well, that's fine. I'm going to keep doing what I believe I need to be doing. But I also will then adjust myself into different structures, like a business structure that works for me. Because that structure worked for everybody else. It wasn't actually working for me anymore. So this is why over the last year I left my home, where I grew up, because it was very hard for me to grow and evolve and have a business inside of all that, where everybody wants to think of Kelly Drury as the Kelly Drury when she was like 5 to 18 years old, not the Kelly Drury who's, lived in different parts of the world and country, who's had multiple types of education that have introduced all kinds of different ideas that make her so much more different than she was when she was that age. And yet when you're in these familial environments, people are going to keep holding you in the box that they want to hold you in, so you can't expand. And so that's why I left. I left for 4 months because I wanted to decondition from that. I wanted to experience myself through the eyes of others that did not know me. I wanted to experience myself being in an environment where people didn't know me. That's freedom. That's growth. And as a result of it, creativity came out of me, and it allowed me to pivot my world and my career in a direction that feels right for me. And I don't think that's stopping anytime soon. So anytime you want to keep putting me in a box, by the time you've caught up to the box I put myself in momentarily, I'm going to be in a new one. I am here to try to understand how to quantum shift, quantum heal. I am not interested in this limited way that people understand the world and existence. I had a practice where people from other realms, ancestors in other realms, were talking to me and giving me messages for my patients. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't happen all the time and that we don't have that ability. But most people can't clue into that because they've been eating food that is poisoned and processed. That pulls you away from you because now your body has to focus on dealing with that. Air that is loaded with, and an environment that unfortunately is loaded with chemtrail, stuff that comes from chemtrails, things that are in our environment, in our air quality. And sometimes that's because of fires and what comes from that and what we're dealing with from, natural circumstances. And sometimes that's coming from, Newark, New Jersey, where we call it the sacrifice zone. Why? Because it's loaded with toxic, it's a toxic environment, and yet we're still building on that. So I'm going to end there, and I will end up, because my mama just came home, and it's important that I go give her a big hug right now. But I want you to think about these cycles for yourself and what this last year has been trying to pull out of you and heal in you, and what do you believe is trying to be healed in the world and in the collective at this moment. Give that your attention, and not everything else that's trying to pull you away from the truth. All right, lots of love to you through this eclipse.